Welcome everybody to Week in Review. Thank you for the honor and the privilege of being able to serve you, equip you, challenge you, so that you and I are alert to what's happening in our day. We want to be sons of Issachar who understand the times with knowledge of what to do. Now, I don't know if you enjoy engaging with people, but I try my best to evangelize. I give out my personal testimony tracts to people. And one of the things I love to do is to engage people by just saying, hey, did you know? And we'll talk about things like I was in the Hilton Hotel the other day and I said to a businessman, I said something about, did you know the most weight ever lifted by a human being? And I'll tell you, I've done this for decades. I think I've had one person guess it. 6,400 pounds. Paul Anderson, Toccoa, Georgia. Most people say about 800 or whatever it is. It was a phenomenal feat. I love to ask people things like, like my wife said the other night to somebody, she said, okay, good night. And she said, sleep tight. I tell people, do you know what the meaning of that is? People don't know. Well, you know what it is? In Shakespeare's time, they would affix a mattress to a frame, and then they had ropes to tighten it so that you would sleep comfortably. And if the ropes were loose or something like that, somebody, a servant, whatever, would tighten the ropes. And then they'd say, how's it feel? And they'd say, okay, good night, sleep tight. How about this one? Mind your P's and Q's. A lot of times as parents, we say that to children. Where does that come from? Well, I've had the honor to be in England many times, and there are thousands of pubs. They're like the community center where people go and they get they'll say, give me a pint of ale or a quart of ale, whatever it is. Well, in bygone days, what would happen is when people began to drink, if they got a little rowdy, the bartender would shout out. He'd say, mind your pints and Q's. What was that? Mind your P's and Q's. That's where that came from. Now, how about this one? Maybe you remember there was a movie, The Gladiator, and in there they talked about, Roman leaders saying, just give them bread and circuses. What is that? You probably heard that statement. It's a common phrase. And you know what? Do you know the origin, the meaning of that? What does that mean? Roman rulers saying, just give them bread and circuses. Well, that came from a poet during the time of Rome, and as there was a decline and Rome was on a slippery slope, and people were being diverted, distracted, and deceived. You say, well, what were they doing? What were the rulers? Well, the rulers were not looking out for the people anymore. They were content in their positions. They were exploiting them. They were not problem solving, but they felt if we can just give them diversion and distraction and deceive them, they'll not pay attention to what's really going on. Now, give them bread. Well, they doled out, what was it? It was corn. You can look. Grain doles were given out to keep the people in a superficial way distracted and happy. And then give them circuses. I took Latin in high school, Latin circle. What was that? It was the outdoor venues, the coliseums, the events that took place. And people were giving themselves to entertainment and pleasure. And as a result of it, they were apathetic and ignorant. And I'll tell you this, apathy leads to calamity. And we're living in a time where that's exactly what's taking place in our day. And we have many politicians, they're career politicians, they're not looking out for the people. And I would say in particular, even though I pray for him every day, is Joe Biden. He's incompetent, he's incapacitated, and this has not been a good start. The first 2 weeks of this year have been disastrous for him. But you know what? He will make statements. His White House press secretary meets with the press, Karine, and they're lying to us. You say, well, what do you mean they're lying to us? Well, what they're doing is, in a sense, give them bread and give them circuses, entertainment, nonstop Netflix, NFL games. At Christmas, I think there were 4 NFL games. You ever think of that? That's over 3 hours. There's over 100 plus ads in an NFL game. Did you know that? It's probably 60% of your time you're wasting on commercials. And then you know how much action actually takes place? Well, 11 minutes. That's it. That's why I tape the games and I move through them quickly. Now, I want to tell you, we cannot afford in this day to just say, yeah, give me our bread, my giveaways and entitlements. And that's what Biden and the radical Democrats are doing. And just give me circuses, pleasure, games, NFL, all this stuff. So I don't pay attention to what you're doing. Now I want to give you, let me go through this, and this is essential. Number one, there are at least 10 things that are going on that many people aren't really paying attention to, and we need to, because they're serious and they're jeopardizing our nation. And we saw the slippery slope that Rome was on and collapsed. Where do you think America is headed? You say, well, what are some of the things? Well, I'd say this is number one, the economy. We have inflation, the worst in what? Over 40 years. A Bloomberg report said that we're spending almost $8,000 more in 1 year in a household. But Mr. Biden will get up and he'll have his teleprompter propaganda in the White House, and they'll tell us more jobs and we're underway, and he will outright lie. And you'll listen, you say, what's he talking about, the border? What's he talking about, the economy and that? Well, the economy, what do the forecasters say the economic outlook is for this year? And 81% of Americans say it's only going to get worse. I'm not trying to scare you. It's serious, but we're not going to surrender. You know another area? The border. Recently, Mr. Biden went down to the border and, they cleaned things up. Folks, I've been down to El Paso at least. I've been there at least 20 times. It's a state of emergency. You know what? Migrants are coming into this country. Over 6 million have come in illegally in the past 2 years. That's shocking. Now they're coming from Cuba and Haiti in boats. It's a surge. And yet what will Mr. Biden say? He'll say, we've got things under control. Mayorkas, the guy that's his man out there in Kamala, we got things under control. It's chaotic. It's a catastrophe. And it's your money and mine that is going to pay when people come and they get their free medical, their housing, their food, their transportation, pregnancy. Folks, we are spending hundreds of billions because of this disaster. What else? Well, I'd say this one, marriage. We saw the president recently celebrating, signing, and then having thousands of LGBTQ proponents and advocates on the lawn for what they call the signing of the Respect for Marriage Act. It is the Disrespect for Marriage Act, and it is literally taking thousands of years of history, marriage between a man and a woman. Yes, that's what the Bible makes, and that's tradition. That's what religions all over the world support. But now we're going to redefine it, and we're going to use certain codes, and we're going to use laws to promote and celebrate that which is contrary to the Word of God. That's going on. Folks, this is going to affect your children and your grandchildren. How about the unborn? You say, well, Roe v. Wade was overturned. Folks, we have 21 states that have already passed legislation now that is going to protect what? Laws that say you can abort an unborn innocent little baby right up until the moment of birth. And we're in a war, and we have a president, Catholic, just like Pelosi was, and they're celebrating it. They're using our taxpayer money to support it, promote it, not just in America, but abroad. That's going on right now. This is serious stuff, folks. How about this one? You can look out and you can say spending. Do you know in 2 years, Mr. Biden has spent over $6 trillion. You say, well, I don't pay attention to this stuff. Folks, $6 trillion. We have a national debt right now of $31 trillion. The record spending previously was Obama, and it was a little more than $2 trillion. And he's done almost 3 times that. That's why we have inflation. That's why we're facing recession globally. And these are the serious things, and we need to be aware of them. And yet it's reckless spending. You know, the omnibus bill, Biden passed it, $1.7 trillion. Did you look at some of the wasteful spending? How about spending millions of dollars for a jogging trail in honor of Michelle Obama in Georgia? That's your money. Folks, we need to know what's going on our watch. Another one is the LGBTQ agenda. Radically being pushed. You can see it. I saw the other day, because this is being celebrated, here's a young guy, a biological male in a state that just won, he says, well, now I'm a woman. He won the beauty pageant, and he's 2 steps away from Miss America. We see the radical agenda and what's going on. This is affecting our children. They're looking, Disney, hey, they got gay and sick. You see on Hallmark, they got 2 gay guys now, and that's the feature of the Christmas movie. Folks, this is being promoted and celebrated, and Romans 1 tells us danger is alert when we start going down this path. Another one is simply this, weaponizing the federal government. You say, what does that mean? Well, using the FBI, using the Department of Justice to push an agenda. And now we're seeing, because of the Twitter files and Mr. Musk, things are coming out exposing Hunter Biden, the cover-up, and all of this, and it's coming out. And Mr. Biden, remember, coming against, Donald Trump hiding stuff at Mar-a-Lago. And now all of a sudden they're finding out for 2 months there was stuff that he had in 3 different locations. His lawyers, his handlers, they knew it. They didn't talk about it. Now it's coming out. This doesn't bode well for Mr. Biden. And let's just keep looking at what's taking place. I'll tell you another thing. I would say this, is you're seeing the Afghanistan withdrawal. You say, well, that's in the past. Folks, we've given over $80 billion, our best sophisticated equipment. It was an unmitigated disaster on our watch. And who now controls the weaponry and what we left there instead of a wise withdrawal like was being advised? These are things that are taking place, and our enemies are watching, and they see what's going on today. You can also see other things. I could go on and on, but we cannot afford to be ignorant. And I say this to you, I encourage you. Some of the commentaries I've written recently about Mr. Biden and Hunter Biden and what's taking place, read them and then digest it and share it with others. This is a serious time, but I tell you, we have hope because there are people awakening. People are saying, I'm not sure about all these vaccines and booster shots and all that. Why are all these mysterious quick deaths taking place? What's taking place? These athletes and movie stars and people are just dropping dead. I don't know what's going on, but people are not getting shots now because they're saying something is amiss. And then you see the Twitter files, the revelation of what's going on. I want to encourage you. This is not a time to say, okay, just give us bread and circuses, Netflix, NFL games. We'll pay no attention. Just let the government do their thing. We need to pray for our leaders. We need to understand what's going on. And we're not going to be diverted, distracted, or deceived. We're going to speak the truth. In Isaiah, the Lord said he looked for someone to stand in the gap, build up the wall. But then Jesus, what? It's so scary. He said, I could find no one. That's not going to be spoken of us. God's going to say, my eyes go throughout the whole earth, and I'm going to show myself strong on behalf of those whose hearts are blameless, those that are preaching the gospel, those that are praying and communicating truth. That's you and me. We're not saying, just give us bread and circuses. We're saying, give me the word of God, and I'll communicate it clearly and courageously.